Pay us what you owe us. That was the strong message from WNBA All-Stars over the weekend as the biggest names in the league warmed up for Saturday's headlining event with matching t-shirts carrying that phrase on the front. We'll talk more about that in a moment, but first, top of the morning to you on this Monday, July 21st. This is the Morning Buzzcast, and I am SBJ senior writer Joe Lemire bringing you the headlines. Scottie Scheffler ran away from the field to win the Open Championship, his second major of the year. Another NFLPA executive has resigned. The first couple of NFL teams have started training camp. NASCAR won't be returning to the streets of Chicago. And President Trump is trying to reignite some Native American naming controversies. But first, we returned to the W, with the WNPA's gesture of solidarity and strength, pay us what you owe us, came just moments after the W's commissioner, Cathy Engelbert, addressed the media sharing notes of optimism that a collective bargaining agreement would be agreed to before the October 31st deadline. The mixed messaging started a couple days prior when some players, such as Breanna Stewart, described a pre-All-Star bargaining meeting as a wasted opportunity to make progress, while Engelbert described those conversations as, quote, constructive. The league's new 11-year media rights deal, which is valued at $2.2 billion, or about $200 million per year, is a huge boon to the bottom line, as is Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, each paying $250 million for expansion franchises. In all, that's roughly $3 billion in new league revenue that can be counted on over the next 11 years. The players certainly want and deserve a sizable share of that, while, as Engelbert said, the league wants to, quote, significantly increase their salary and benefits while balancing with our owners the ability to have a path of profitability as well to continued investment. In the game itself, Napheesa Collier scored an all-star record 36 points to lead her team over Caitlin Clark's squad, which played without its injured namesake. TV ratings should be out soon, and it'll be interesting to track. After only 850,000 watched in 2023, last year's contest drew 3.44 million. But regardless of that one data point, attendance and merchandise sales are both up this year, as is national TV ratings, by 23% year over year. So it's been another big year for growth. Over to golf, world number 1 Scottie Scheffler won the British Open by 4 strokes on Sunday, with world number 2 Rory McIlroy even conceding that his 3 wins on the tour this year were all when Scheffler wasn't quite on his game following a minor injury, a wound suffered while, of all things, making ravioli on Christmas. But Rory's comment is emblematic of the respect Scheffler's getting on tour right now. In fact, he and others said Scheffler's playing the sport's most dominant golf since peak Tiger Woods a quarter century ago. But Scheffler certainly hasn't embraced the spotlight in the same way. After the win, he said, I've said it for a long time, golf is not how I identify myself. I don't identify myself by winning tournaments, chasing trophies, being famous, or whatever. And of course, just before the tournament, Scheffler gave a long soliloquy explaining that the joy he feels after winning tournaments is fleeting and that he doesn't try to inspire the next generation of golfers, calling it not a fulfilling life to bask in fame and success. He said he loves playing and the challenge, but, quote, at the end of the day, it's not what satisfies me. I encourage you to read or listen to the entire answer if you missed it, as it's thoughtful and philosophical. And it will be interesting to track just how, or if, Scheffler embraces his growing stature going forward. One of his major sponsors, Nike, has already leaned in, dropping an ad immediately after he sank the final putt, reinforcing this idea. There were 2 photos. On the left, his son Bennett is on the green and crawling towards Scheffler, reaching out for his club with the phrase, "You've already won," at the top. And then on the right is a photo of Scheffler following through on a swing with the words, "But another major never hurt." Abe Madkour shared news last week on the Buzzcast of NFLPA Executive Director Lloyd Howell's abrupt resignation, citing the distraction his leadership had become. The Athletic reported that a membership call with player reps from all 32 teams took place on Friday night, conferring on new leadership possibilities and suggesting that current NFLPA Chief Strategy Officer J.C. Tretter and the union's Chief Player Officer Don Davis were the leading contenders to replace Howell. Well, that's no longer the case, as Tretter tendered his resignation on Sunday after holding leadership roles in the union since 2020. For the first 5 years, he was player president, and for the last year, he was CSO. But Tretter said he was leaving the NFLPA in the next few days and removing his name from consideration for the role of an interim executive director. Tretter led the personnel process that resulted in Howell's hiring. Treader spoke with CBS Sports for an hour on Sunday, sharing insights from that process and the last few months, including the fact that he was also left in the dark about the collusion grievance that was bound by a confidentiality agreement. Check out the full story at CBS Sports. The LA Chargers and Detroit Lions, who face each other on July 31st in the Hall of Fame game, the annual first preseason contest, were the first NFL teams to start training camp, while others have at least begun opening it up for rookies, and all veterans arrive across the league in the next few days. If it feels like the NFL season just keeps on churning, well, of course you're right. With its 3 tentpole offseason moments purposely spaced 2 months apart, Combine in February, Draft in April, schedule release in June, the drumbeat of news just keeps on churning. I had the pleasure of hosting the latest New York chapter of the Leaders Club last week. That's our professional membership program for mid-career executives seeking to become the industry's future leaders. SeatGeek was an excellent host for the evening, and one of the panelists of the ticketing focus session I moderated was Skylar Simpson, NFL Senior Director of Club Business Development. It was great to hear his perspective of the infrastructure investment completed by the league to improve its fan data, personalize the fan experience, and make ticketing a more seamless process. On Friday night, NASCAR confirmed speculation that the Chicago street race would not return next year after it had taken place the last 3 years, but it seems likely to come back a year later, as official word said the hiatus would grant the racing circuit a chance to collaborate with the city of Chicago to find a new date and a plan with optimized operational efficiencies, with a goal to return to the streets of Chicago in 2027. SBJ's Adam Stern already had reported on the possibility of a race at the Chicagoland Speedway next year instead. He also wrote that the Mexico City race might be subbed out, potentially in place of a race in San Diego. And the latest from the White House's attempt to intervene in sports business is President Trump threatening to impede progress toward the Washington Commanders' new stadium if the franchise does not revert to its original name, the one that was offensive to Native Americans. Trump claimed, without evidence, that the team would be much more valuable by its old nickname. Former President Biden already transferred the stadium site land before leaving office from the federal government to the city of D.C., so it's not clear on what grounds Trump plans to stop the progress of the project. Commanders owner Josh Harris has already been explicit that the Commanders' name was here to stay. Trump also said Cleveland's baseball team should no longer use the Guardians moniker in favor of its own insensitive prior label. The Guardians' president of baseball operations, Chris Antonetti, responded on Sunday and reiterated that it, too, would not revisit the name change. Trump also incorrectly called out Matt Dolan in a social media post, saying he had endured political failure because of the name change, even though Matt Dolan hasn't had a role with the team since overseeing its charities in 2016. Incidentally, David Blitzer is a minority owner in both of these franchises. Thanks for tuning in to the Morning Buzzcast. This is Joe Lemire wishing you a great Monday. I'll speak with you again tomorrow.